Hi everyone, welcome to the Value Inspiration podcast. My name is Ton Dobbe and I'm the founder of Value Inspiration and the author of The Remarkable Effect. I'm creating a tribe of tech entrepreneurs that are on a mission to do something big and meaningful. I invite you to join the tribe as well, especially if you want to create change that matters and put your software business on momentum that you're proud of. The goal that I have with this podcast is twofold. Firstly, to inspire new forms of value creation by sharing compelling ideas and stories about the potential we can unlock when technology and people blend in the right way. And secondly, share experiences from tech entrepreneurs like you about what is required to create a remarkable software business and how to overcome the roadblocks to do so. The guest of our podcast today is Zor Gorelov, co-founder and CEO of Kasisto.
Our long-term belief that conversational user interface is the most natural, most intuitive way for consumers to interact with computers. The vision of the company is to be able to enable better financial decision-making using conversational AI. The idea is to democratize financial services through AI and make sure that everybody gets the best possible advice. Because we believe it is so important because as consumers shift to digital, the relationship between banks and their customers become very transactional. People go in and check their balances, pay their bill, look up some transactions and then they move on. And, the whole concept about, humanizing that experience is to add intelligent conversational assistants that can help the consumers better understand, better manage their money, but also help banks better engage those users on those channels as well.
This is Zor. He has over 20 years of experience in the software industry. He was a co-founder and CEO of SpeechCycle, a market leader in cloud-based contact center optimization solutions for the telco market. SpeechCycle was acquired by Synchronoss Technologies. Before that, Zor founded and ran buscompany.com, a provider of enterprise collaboration and messaging software, which was acquired by MLTX.com. He has held multiple engineering and product management positions at Microsoft and Computron Software. His interest in speech and natural language technologies dates back from the early 90s, when he worked at Bell Labs. And this is where his latest company comes in, Kasisto. The company was founded around the mission to create technologies that give financial institutions the power to produce humanizing digital experiences that build valuable relationships. And this triggered me, and hence I invited Zor to my podcast. We explore the challenges that banks face as their relationships with customers becomes very transactional, and what needs to be done differently to continue to grow valuable and engaging relationships. We also discuss Zor's vision to create a software business that's worth making a remark about. By listening to this podcast, you will learn 3 things. Firstly, why designing our software solutions for trust is underrated, and consequently, more often than not, trust erodes rather than increases. Secondly, how we can create human-machine combos that deliver value larger than the sum of its components. And thirdly, that true value is not coming from replacing an old function with a new gimmick, it comes from creating net new experiences, enabling things that users are not able to do already. Well, hi Zor, thank you for being a guest on my podcast today.
Happy to be here. Hello, Tom.
Yeah, the reason why I invited you was an email that I recently received about news in the industry, and your company was mentioned again. I've been following your company on a distance for a while, but you won an award again. So congratulations first of all on that. And the reason why I was following you for a while was because of the things you are doing in the banking industry, and that caught my attention. So let's have a discussion around that. But before we start, it's always interesting for my audience to get to know you a little bit more. So if you would have to describe yourself in 2 or 3 words, what would that be?
Well, I'm a software entrepreneur, software engineer by training. I love software, and that's how I started my career, and that's what I continue to do now.
Okay, and what characterizes you? Any special characteristics?
I like working with people. I like building relationships with my employees, with the customers. I really believe in that. So I don't know if it's a characteristic of mine, but I really being around people, and, I enjoy what I do every day. I like being around my employees. I like to spend time with customers, understanding what their pain points are. I like to build products, work with the product teams, and, again, helping solve some real problems.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a perfect link to what your company Kasisto does. And on the website, on the homepage, it says humanizing digital experiences, which is what it's all about. At the end, it's about people. And I like that. So talking about your company and to introduce that, can you explain what is the big idea behind the company?
Well, there are really two ideas. One idea is sort of our long-term belief that conversational user interface is the most natural, most intuitive way for consumers to interact with computers. It will continue to happen. It will continue to get better. It will continue to get smarter. And, one day we get to a point where conversational user interface will be it, and graphical user interfaces will be used in support of the conversation. So that's a sort of, big picture, big idea. We are taking this concept into finance. And the idea in finance is really behind the vision of the company is to be able to enable better financial decision making using conversational AI. We use conversational AI to enable human-like conversations, and we handle millions of these conversations today every month, and we're hoping that every one of those conversations, although they are AI powered, they are helping users to achieve better outcomes. The idea is to democratize financial services through AI and make sure that everybody gets the best possible advice. And, God knows these days people are worried about their health and they're worried about their finances. And, our bet is that conversational AI will become more of an answer in financial services.
Yeah, I mean, you must definitely see a spike right now in terms of people talking to any device, what the status is, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a need. I mean, it's very unfortunate we're living through this now.
Yeah.
And we're certainly seeing a spike in our systems. Our customers are seeing spikes in their contact centers and their websites. Yeah, that's the time. And, normally I think that the one of the outcomes of what happens today with the coronavirus is that many banks will start rethinking their digital engagement, digital servicing strategy, and virtual assistants will become more of a mainstream in banking and certainly core components of banking business continuity platforms.
Yeah, I can imagine. Exactly. Yeah, you don't want people in the banks anymore, especially the last couple of weeks. And that will hopefully indeed create this aha moment for banks that now is the moment. And I'm not sure how that is across the world, but I mean, I live in Spain, and typically all the banks that I work with have been on these digital platforms for a number of years right now. Although I must say that it's typically an app, and I'm not talking to the app yet. So that's the next thing then.
Well, I think it's not just the digital transformation in banks, it's changing consumer behaviors. I think that people still go to branches and call contact centers, and that will, continue. So it's one thing for banks to digitally transform themselves, and it's another thing to change behavior of consumers, which takes time. And unfortunately, crises like we're in now, oftentimes become that sort of watershed event where, people look at it and banking executives look at it and say, well, we just need to find different way to engage our customers, different way to service our customers. Now, if you think about it, and you mentioned humanizing digital experience. We believe it is so important because as consumers shift to digital, the relationship between banks and their customers become very transactional. People go in and check their balances, pay their bill, look up some transactions, and then they move on. And, the whole concept about, humanizing that experience is to add intelligent conversational assistants that can help the consumers better understand, better manage their money, but also help banks better engage those users on those channels as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see how this all evolves. And I mean, I have a customer that's in the e-commerce space. And one of the things that they have seen developing is that relationships that were typically always face-to-face in the past, kind of selling goods, have now turned digital. And one of the things that became sort of an issue for building long-term relationships was the whole level of trust. Is that something you see as well as something to design for?
How to build trust on digital platforms?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And that's where intelligence comes in. I mean, why do you think people call contact centers? Of course, they are digital laggards and people who don't want to, go to their app or mobile banking, mobile website. But at the end of the day, there's some people who call their banks because voice and human on the other side is still most reassuring thing, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I think that, and then to the extent that the digital platforms do not provide the engagement and intelligence that instills trust and confidence that you get the right answer and your issue is solved, that people will demand person-to-person contacts.
Yeah.
So trust is absolutely one of the key elements, and the trust tied to intelligence.
Yeah, true. So what is the opportunity if you get this right? I mean, if you look at customers before using Kasisto and after, what is the difference in terms of what they experience and their customers experience?
To answer the question, I think we need to look at two aspects of two parties, so to speak, interacting with, taking advantage of our capabilities. On one hand, you have banks, and banks have very specific needs, right? When they go digital, they are looking for better ways to digitally engage, acquire, and service customers. And that's where they start using our platform, and we help banks achieve very measurable and very impressive business outcomes. For example, one of our customers deployed Kai. Kai is our virtual assistant product, and it's a white label product. So banks create their own persona, they design their own names, et cetera, et cetera. So they deployed Kai-powered assistant. Before Kai was deployed, they had a live chat option on the mobile apps and online website. In other words, before Kai, you as a consumer of that particular bank, you could click on an icon, live chat came up, you chatted with the customer service representative, and then you moved on. It's a model that is hard to scale. That's what we're talking about on this call. So they deployed Kai. So now consumers had to go to Kai, interact with Kai, and only then, a live chat agents were sort of a backup for Kai, and the users could engage live chat assistants only after speaking with Kai. So here are the results that they achieved. First of all, 85% of all questions that were asked were answered without human assistance. In other words, questions that consumers went in and asked Kai answered 85 out of 100 of those questions. Okay.
Pretty high.
A number of live chat sessions at the bank was reduced by 50%. So now you have this AI assistant answering questions. There is a lesser need to interact with humans. So banks was able to reduce live chat volume by 50%. Now, and most interestingly, the engagement is measured a number of sessions that were initiated before and after Kai was 4x. In other words, consumers went to Kai-powered virtual assistants 4 times more frequently than they initiated a live chat session. And, if you look at types of interactions, that becomes very obvious why this is happening, because in order to go to live chat, it's a commitment, right? You need to go in, you need to talk about the weather, and you need to, talk about coronavirus. And then you say, well, by the way, why did you block my card? And consumers go in and interact. They go in, ask questions. What did I spend on Uber, my trip in San Francisco? Get the answer. So not only they're able to answer questions very quickly, they can answer more questions and different types of questions. So in this case, virtual assistant drove engagement because it not only enabled instant answers, but it also answered different types of questions. Questions that could you don't even call or your bank or live chat with your bank because the bank will never answer the question. So it drove expansion of use cases. So the banks are looking at it and saying, well, it's about servicing, engaging, and acquiring, and we show some outcomes. I talked about servicing, 80% plus containment, 50% reduction in live chat, engagement 4x. Now, on acquisition, 15% of the remaining sessions, remember I said we answer 85 out of 100 questions, 15 of those, about 20% of those sessions led to upsell and cross-sell opportunities. In other words, Kai was escalating to live chat because there was an opportunity the consumer was inquired about, a new product or new service. So we drive the engagement across all of those 3 things: service, engagement, acquire. Now, the other side of that spectrum is the consumers themselves. Consumers don't go to banking websites to be serviced, engaged, or acquired. They go because they have a problem, they need to make a decision. And that's what we're focused on. The vision is to help consumers make better financial decisions. And that's how we design our assistants.
Nice. I mean, it solves a range of things, and it actually makes people available again to do the things that why they were hired in the first place, which is do the more valuable cases. Interesting. So, I mean, I've realized you've been in business since 2013. So you were early in this game, I would say. But you also made a very distinct decision to go for the financial industry, the banking industry specifically. What was the reason behind that?
Yeah, so the reason behind that goes back to the history of the company. First of all, my DNA, this is my third startup. I always worked in enterprise software, cloud services space. So I understand the enterprise software business. I like it. I don't have anything about any knowledge of how to build consumer businesses. So that part of consideration. The history of Kasisto goes back, as you said, 7 years. The Kasisto is a spin-off from Stanford Research Institute, or SRI. SRI is one of the largest, probably top 5 labs in the world, and AI is one of their core competencies.
Yeah.
So some of your listeners may not know SRI, but they for sure know Siri. Siri is an AI startup that was created at SRI before it was sold to Apple. So they really have decades of AI experience. And the history of Kasisto goes back to Siri. I think there's a team of SRI scientists started working on next generation virtual personal assistant platform post-Siri. And the idea was to create human-like experience and make this platform conversational. And in order to do that, they said that, well, we need to make it vertical specific. Right? What does it mean, right? What makes Kai unique is the combination of natural language and reasoning technologies, right? Natural language is understanding what user intent is, and the reasoning is helping users get things done. I'll give you an example. I'd like to buy an apple. Whether you are Best Buy or E-Trade or Trader Joe's, your apple buying experience is quite different. So, combining natural language and reasoning and helping users buy the right apple, that's where the domain knowledge comes in. So SRI started working on the platform. At the same time, this is, I'm going to say maybe 2010 or 11, they were approached by BBVA, which, I'm sure you're familiar with BBVA.
Yeah.
And the CEO of BBVA at the time commissioned a survey of customers, employees, executives, prospects around the world, and he basically wanted to know what's the digital engagement like on mobile channels, on the online websites. And one of the key takeaways from the survey that BBVA did at the time was human-like interactions. And I think BBVA went to SRI and they collaborated. And if you go do Google search and for BBVA SRI Lola, you will see that the world's first banking virtual assistant was built by SRI with BBVA. And that IP was folded and became Kasisto. So the first thing, and SRI approached me to become the CEO of the venture. I went to SRI. They were based in Menlo Park. They're still based in Menlo Park. And I met with the team, and I was really, really impressed with what they built. And I said to SRI, I'm really interested. At the time, I sold my second software company, and I said, I'm really interested. However, I want to do 2 things. First, I'm no longer a software engineer. I used to write code, but not anymore. And I need a strong technical co-founder, somebody who can help me take this technology to market. And then I need to validate demand in banking, make sure that banking is the right vertical for us to go to. So I was fortunate enough, I came back to New York for my trip, and I was able to recruit Sasha Kasky. Sasha became co-founder and CTO. He joined me from IBM, and we started going to SRI, and then we started meeting with banks. This is 2013, 14, and we saw really strong interest in virtual assistant technology.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we came back, applied. There's a group in New York called FinTech Innovation Lab. We applied to, it's sort of Y Combinator of New York, if you will. And we ended up winning the competition and started working with a lot of banks, and the rest of it is history.
Yeah. And I completely agree with you on the example of buying an Apple. The domain knowledge is extremely high. And I think it also goes back to the discussion we had earlier on around trust, because this is, first of all, it's about finance. But I mean, the experience that a lot of people have is the moment you speak to a generic AI or generic virtual assistant, you get answers all over the place. And you stop and you start calling the support line again.
And then people build a lot of systems that are not that intelligent. Major bank in Europe deployed a virtual assistant. You go and you say, I'd like to open a savings account, and it says, I know you're asking me something about savings. Well, it tells you that they basically do pretty dumb rudimentary keyword detection. They don't understand. And if you, a virtual assistant, you can help your customers open an account and understand a savings account. I mean, what do you know? I mean, so I think utility and intelligence leads to trust.
True. Yeah. And trust at the end, specifically in this world, but there are more industries like that. It's about that vertical domain aspect. Understanding the language. And that's also what I've seen a number of times on your website, mastering the language of banking. So, I think we discussed a couple of things already about what you specifically did in order to make the solution remarkable in what it is. And I mean, you've already highlighted a number of prizes, including a recent one again. So what did you learn from selling this and how fast this is going in the banking industry?
Well, nothing is going fast in the banking industry. In fact, if you're enterprise software, things take time. Yeah. And that's how we are an enterprise cloud company, and we work with banks. What we've learned are a number of things. That A, virtual assistants are becoming a must-have, and B, while the state of the technology was such that only big banks, large banks could afford to play with virtual assistants and deploy them and build them, the underlying technology is becoming mature enough that where virtual assistants can be deployed on scale by smaller financial service organizations, credit unions, and regional banks, and provide very compelling user experiences as well.
That's good. I mean, you're talking about democratizing financial services, and that's exactly where this is going then. Because the moment you speak with a company,
there is no reason for Bank of America has Erica, their virtual assistant. There are various estimates out there about how much money Bank of America spent it, but all of them are in tens of millions of dollars. And Erica is a good example. A bank is sort of building its brand around, and there is no reason why, given today's state of conversational AI and products that are out there, the smaller banks not be able to use product like Kai and provide user experience that are on par or even better than Erica. There are some things that Kai does that are very, very compelling. One of which is that it is a conversational system. It's not a question answering system. You can actually have a conversation with Kai, and you can start making a payment, and then come back and say, well, wait a minute, do I have enough money in my checking? Kai says, well, no, but I will transfer money from savings. Let's do that. And then you make a payment. So, those are human-like experiences that are very, very meaningful.
Yeah. Interesting. So, what crossed my mind at the end is, typically with the banking industry, I think that's maybe the best example of it for what I know. I mean, I have to count the number of times I actually go to a bank. So the moment that experience is not what you expect or not what you want anymore, you switch. So it's like, I can see your point about virtual assistants becoming a must, but also that you want to have the best possible one, because otherwise that loyalty is not there anymore.
I don't know if I completely agree with that. I think switching from a bank is still a commitment. But I do agree that experience really, really matters. I want to circle back and go the question that you asked about biggest learning, and I think it will also address to what you just said. I think the company's biggest learning was that to build compelling conversational experiences is not about putting a layer of natural language or speech recognition on top of the banking functions that you already have in mobile app. Right. Yeah. If your transfer money requires voice enablement, then it's probably not well designed. You should improve transfer money feature, not put voice on it. I think what we've learned in the beauty and utility of conversational AI systems are in creating net new experiences, enabling things that users are not able to do already on digital channels. Right. The example I used before. You said you came back from San Francisco, New York. Well, what did I spend on dining out on my trip to San Francisco? Try and do that in your mobile app, but it takes 3 seconds and you get that answer in Kai. So it's about creating net new experiences as opposed to trying to voice enable or natural language enable features that you already have as a bank.
Let me make a small interruption here. Zor just explained the critical mindset that drives the success of his company. To create net new experiences that users are not able to do already, instead of putting a layer on top of an old function. This is a trait that defines remarkable software businesses. Their ability to create new value possibilities, be it small or large. Mastering this trait underpins the viability of your software business, and with that, its ability to create solutions people find worth making a remark about. If you want to learn what you can do to turn the software business you own, run or work for into a remarkable software business, I advise you to read my book, The Remarkable Effect. You can buy it on Amazon and many other portals where they sell books online. Back to the interview. Yeah, it reminds me of writing my book. One of the key traits that I'm talking about in my book is that exact thing, that remarkable software companies create new value possibilities. That's chapter number 5. So that's exactly that. Not doing the same thing in a different way.
I got to get your book now. So now that, we agreed on that, on the commandment number 5 is remarkable experiences, new experiences.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. So what are you most proud of seeing so far? Anecdotes from banks or from people that are related to that?
I'm most proud of the team that we have in place. We have an incredibly talented team of employees, people who I respect and like, and we're all working remotely now. We're sort of holding the business together, trying to service our customers. So my biggest achievement so far is really putting this team together and making sure that people work together and that we have the right company culture. And so that's the biggest moment for me, if there is one.
Okay, yeah, well, it's a very common answer. At the end, it's also about a team, because without a team, you don't get the brilliance to come up with the long-term viability as a company to stay ahead of the curve.
To me, it's not about the end. To me, it's the beginning of the team. It starts with the team and ends with the team. Yeah, I think that my job as a CEO is to put the right team together and give them the tools and resources they need to execute, and then that will make my customers happy. So I'm sort of, my mentality or operating mode is I'm employee first CEO. At least I'd like to think that way. So, and we have a number of core values, one of which in the company is to respect our customers. We're trying to work and listen to our customers very carefully. With that said, I believe that employees and the talent that we have is our biggest competitive advantage.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree on that. It's often used in the wrong way, but at the end, it's about the people that make things happen. So, from the lessons learned, and if you would speak to peers in your industry, what would you advise them to do different or stop doing in order to create a remarkable software company?
Stop doing. Well, let me tell them
start doing.
Yeah, start. I think start. Look, I think it starts with the culture and the values in the company and the vision. I think that's where the companies start. I think product ideas get created. I think execution is important. It's not about the ideas, but the culture and value and vision persist. So that's how I would recommend it's very hard to execute and build software business, or any business probably, the companies that have no vision, companies that don't have the foundation of culture and values that are built on. In fact, before we started Kasisto, the co-founders sat down and for 2 days, we were locked up in a room, and we said, what kind of company we want to build, what kind of people we want to hire, what are the values of the company, what's the vision. So I think that's where it all starts. What not to do is, what I would tell my colleagues in the AI industry, is to really reduce the rhetoric and the buzzwords about AI, self-driving this and self-learning that, and deep learning and self-training. People use a lot of buzzwords, and it just it's what we do is hard enough, and I don't think it needs more buzzwords and marketing and in a way that is not truthful. So I think that's as you said, 90% of your customers say they do AI. Well, the real ratio is probably 10%. But everybody says AI, and in the enterprise software space, executives get confused. They hear companies saying things in different way, and it's just I think aligning what the priorities are. My favorite example is, I like tennis. Last year, I think IBM Watson ran commercials about Serena Williams. Serena Williams was talking to a Watson computer about her serve and velocity of her serve. And it was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Well, I'm sitting on my bed trying to tell Siri to set my alarm clock. And my experience was very different. I'm saying, well, what does IBM know that Apple doesn't? So I think those kinds of exaggerated experiences, really set expectations that are realistically high. And then, companies big and small are paying the price.
That's true. Yeah. And it gives the whole industry a different, but it hurts perspectives and it hurts trust again. So lead with your remarkable moments in your software and amaze customers with that, and then the rest will follow. And whether that's an AI thing or something else, that doesn't matter then anymore.
It doesn't matter. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
So what is next for you as a CEO of this company? Where do you want to be in the next 12 to 24 months?
Ooh, this is such a loaded question to be asking in the COVID crisis.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Well, fortunately enough, we are well funded. We raised our latest round of financing in January. And I think wouldn't it be fun to be raising money in this year? So we can actually think about 12 or 24 months. My objective is to make sure that we go through this crisis, that we hold the team together, that we invest in R&D to create a remarkable product, because I think the company is in a time of crisis. When they double down and invest in products, they come out on the other side of it. And I know they really come out, there is an end to this tunnel that we're in now. And my goal is to position the company to make sure that we have the best platform, the best virtual assistants, the stronger customer relationship, and the most engaged and healthy employees. That's what and then we grow from there.
Just a question that pops up again, like, are you doing anything more or less than you did a couple of weeks ago in terms of getting that, realizing what you just said?
Well, I am learning how to run the company on Zoom. I'm spending a lot more time. We have with my direct reports, this management team, we have a management meeting every day. Because there is, I used to walk around and talk to people. I also spend a lot of time talking to employees one-on-one. I set a time aside, or I ask people to reach out to me. And so I think everybody's learning how to do this, and sort of run the company virtually or be part of the company virtually, while focusing everyone on the goals of what we need to accomplish. We're not reducing our commitment to our customers. Our customers need us more today than they did yesterday. So we are aiming to keep our deadlines to deliver. We are aiming to keep our product deliverables and stay focused. Yeah.
Focus on the end goal and to come out better at the end. So that's always an interesting one, to set time apart for that and to reflect on how is the world going to be radically different from what it is today. That's an opportunity. So thanks for this. Where can people go to find out more about Kasisto or to reach out to you?
Well, they can go to Kasisto.com, and I am Zor at Kasisto.com. The moment we'll hire another Zor in the company, I won't be CEO. So, it's like really easy to reach me. As long as I don't need my last name attached to my email address, I'm happy.
Exactly.
So Zor at Kasisto.com is where I'm reachable. I'm happy if somebody has questions to continue answering them.
Well, thank you very much. It was an interesting and inspiring conversation. I learned a lot from your viewpoints, and I like them. Great. So good luck in this difficult time. And let's create an opportunity then when all of this is over.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Stay safe. And next time you're in New York, please reach out. I apologize. It took us a year and a half to get connected, but I was waiting for this major award to make you think that we're remarkable.
No. I reached out 1.5 years ago with exactly the same idea behind it already.
But we didn't have that award, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And this ends my interview with Zor. I hope you value the discussion I had with him. We love to hear your thoughts about this episode, and if you have any questions, please post it. And if the interview inspired you, please share it with other tech entrepreneurs on a mission that you have in your network. Other than that, thanks for tuning into this podcast. I had the honor to speak to Zor Gorelov, co-founder and CEO of Kasisto. As said, the goal that I have with this podcast is twofold. Firstly, to inspire new forms of value creation by sharing compelling ideas and stories about the potential we can unlock when technology and people blend in the right way. And secondly, share experiences from tech entrepreneurs like you about what is required to create a remarkable software business and how to overcome the roadblocks to do so. Before I close, I have 2 more comments to make. If you know other tech entrepreneurs on a mission that have a story worth sharing, please send me an email at ton.dobby@valueinspiration.com. Building the momentum all starts with revealing the ideas. And that starts with you. And if you want to know more about my book, or you're interested in joining the Remarkable Effect tribe, please visit my website at www.valueinspiration.com. Thanks for tuning in. And you could do me a big favor by rating the podcast on iTunes or provide me with your feedback directly. I'll see you shortly on a new episode.